Welcome back to Elven Plot Armor. We are back today with part 3 of our 4-part guide on the non-legendary lords. Today we'll be counting down to the number 2 pick, which is coming out to be the Princess. Last episode we went through the Prince, and the one before that we did a comparison of all of the lords together. We will today be going through the Princess, the ways that she can be built, her strengths, weaknesses, and then just a basic brush through her skill tree, and how it is better or worse than the other lords. Quick disclaimer, this is based on campaign play. While I've researched popular opinions and tried them myself, all guidance here is based what I've found to be effective on legendary difficulty playthroughs, without any mods. I'm open to improving anything that is presented, and please feel free to leave any comments, suggestions, or even criticisms in the comments, and I will review them as best as possible. Looking at how we will rank each of the lords, we basically compare them from early to late game, so a more consistent lord that can be carried through is going to have more value than one which just completely drops off. This is usually the case of ones with traits that don't buff late game units. Lords which are able to deliver more realistic and more effective builds, which don't come at the cost of contrived things like difficult buildings and more uncommon structures, will be rated better. Now the Princess. Her strengths are that she has strong traits. She usually has better traits than the Prince, more of the time because they either do something more unique that'll help her faction more offensively, or they basically buff better units because she tends to favour archers, range units, which is the strength of the High Elves. Also, late game she can be used on a dragon mount and be able to use some of her unique bow abilities, which is also very nice. Weaknesses are she is weaker than the Prince. Straight out of the box, she cannot be used to hold the line as well, which is very strong in the early game, but once she reaches the level where she can go on a Star Dragon, that's where the big difference really jumps in. She has the same types of army boosts and campaign buffs as the Prince, but when she is on that dragon, she can now fire her bow and unique items and projectiles from there. This gives her much more damage output opportunity than the Prince, who can cycle charge, which again is an option available to the Princess. She's very similar to the Prince, also that she gets eclipsed by the flexibility and damage output of an Archmage by the late game. It should be noted though that the Princess is not inherently better than the Prince. There are situations where a Prince will have a trait that can help you in your campaign better than a Princess. But overall, short of an amazing trait, Princesses are usually stronger and will deliver more value by the late game. I had to go through some of the builds that I personally find most effective and most enjoyable to use in campaigns, and we're going to kick off first with one honourable mention before going through my top 3 favourite choices. The only honourable mention I'm going to do here is the Bombardier, which is basically allows you to spam Eagle Claw bolt throws. I've decided to put this one here just simply because she does it better than anyone else, even though it's not really a great strategy. High Elves are not known for their artillery, but if you wanted to do this and have some artillery, maybe a line of 10 bolt throws besides some dragons, this is the best way to do it if you are so inclined. The next build is the Sniper build. This allows you to use the Hawkeye ability, which is 30% range, 30% missile damage, as well as Arrow of Curios. Essential skills here, of course, starting with Lightning Strike, but here you'll be prioritising the ranged attacks, Deadeye, piercing arrows, and volley of arrows to be able to get the most out of her. Now, if you don't want to run on a Star Dragon, this is the build that will probably help you tickle that itch if you really have to go on an Eagle or a Griffin. If you have to do it, this is the way that you can do it. The Sniper can function well as a Lord or Monster Sniper. She doesn't have any spell casting, so that's a typical weakness inherent through all Princess builds. And she is a poor line holder at low levels, which again comes with the territory. I'd like to point out this is a fun build, not really a competitive one, but worth mentioning if you are so inclined to go for an Archer Heavy or a non-dragon based build. Now moving on to the more serious builds, the Archer General build. Now this is a build that I can and still do use if given the opportunity. The trait is Punitive, which gives you minus 10% resistance to the local enemy armies, so it basically buffs your missile strength by 10%, 10% chance of wounding targets. Not too bad, but it means that late game you won't have your hero stabbed out of your army, but most important of all, 10% missile strength for archers, and this translates to Sisters of Avalon, making this a fantastic late game choice. Essential skills are Lightning Strike, of course, going to Quartermaster because Sisters of Avalon are expensive. Bowmaster and Favourable Winds to Darken the Sky, basically along your red tree, are the next step to go because this is a support, army, boosting build. The weaknesses are, of course, the typical no spell casting, and she's a poor line holder, but once you get her on a dragon, she has a great ability to back a line for Sisters of Avalon, which is some of the best units in the game, let alone in the high up arsenal. Now moving on to my number 1 and most favourite choice of preferred build with princesses, just because it is so fun to do, is the Huntress Build. This allows you to boost your ambushing to absurd levels, which can be boosted even further using followers. The trait that you want is Vigilant, so plus 30% ambush success chance. This gives you also 100% line of sight, as well as a negative 25% hero action success rate. Awesome stuff. The skill lines you want to follow are Lightning Strike, of course, then followed by boosting your archers, the red line, and also increasing your personal traits that will also bolster your bow damage. The strength of this is that ambushing is incredibly strong. If you are ever in doubt, you should be in ambush stance in Total War Warhammer 2 on campaign. It gives you more options as well as a lot of safety. Having a very high ambush % chance is going to very much help you, and this young lady is good through the entire campaign. Weaknesses? At high levels, not really too many. Again, just outshone by the Archmage sometimes, but the Archmage can't ambush like this, so that's one thing that makes this a very unique build from the early all the way to the late game. So the typical theme that you're seeing here is that the Princess does very similar to the Prince in most facets, except she tends to buff the better units and buff them more. Also, her tactics typically lend themselves better to the late stages of play. She can still cycle charge on a dragon, whilst being able to deliver more consistent damage with her bow and potentially Lord Snipe if you spec it correctly. Regardless, when you start, put points in Rote Marche, you know the drill by now, wary, another point wherever you wish, and then Draft Master to Lightning Strike. Now, because you'll generally be carrying archer-heavy armies and her job is predominantly to support archers, you probably want to prioritise putting points into Inspiring Presence and then 3 points into Bowmaster. From this point here, basically decide what your campaign needs. If you want a bit more kick from your Lord, you can go to the top line, but you may want to consider going further down this line. You can either decide to buff your front line more and increase Silver and Guard if you want them in front of your archers, or you can decide to support them with dragons. Let's just say we do that. I recommend putting 3 points and not spreading them. And then you want the ability Loose. Without any doubt, favourable wins. And then Darken the Skies to give plus 20 reload skill. This will make her an excellent addition and someone to accompany your archers with. The dedication, you can choose the one which suits you. It really does not matter. You can make your choice depending on what stage of the game that you decide to go. You might like Lothran Seaguard, for example. Now, finally, in terms of mounts, she is definitely better than the Prince on a Great Eagle or a Griffin, but still, you cannot turn down the Star Dragon. It's simply too good. You want to make it resistant to missiles and increase the speed to increase its survivability, and then of course your Princess herself, make her immortal. Probably your last priority, but still one worth doing, is to put points into Seeking Arrow, prioritising anything that boosts archery. So going Deadeye, then increasing melee attack, making your way to Piercing Shots, increasing your missile strength by 15% is very nice, and then of course survivability is key, increase your armour. Volley of Arrows, very nice. Any leftover points, you can choose where you would like to spend them. You can put them wherever you like. Roughly, you can even decide to prioritise if your army is getting damaged a lot and you're playing on the easy difficulties. Throwing them in Help and Healing can be quite nice, and Feared and Renown, always to boost. And the world is your oyster where you decide to put your remaining pieces. So in summary, the High Elf Princess is a fantastic lord. Her only weakness is that she's not as great as the Prince at the very beginning, and she doesn't end up as strong as the Archmage at the end. But that's the reason why I love the Huntress Build, boosting her ambush, giving her a niche that is accompanied greatly by the Archer buffs that she will give her Archer heavy army. And that's the end of our video. Thank you so much for watching. My name's been Ryder, and this has been Elven Plot Armor. I hope you've enjoyed the video. Please feel free to subscribe if you'd like to stick around for part 4, which will be the number 1, which has to of course be the Archmage. Thank you so much for watching, and have a good one.